All right there, everyone. We have some breaking news here. Jeffrey Epstein is dead. Jeffrey Epstein, of course, is the billionaire hedge fund manager who's hobnobbed with all the who's who of our leftist globalist elite. We're talking presidents, princes, Hollywood elite, you name it. He was a major left-wing Democratic donor who was currently being charged with sexually abusing dozens, literally dozens of underage girls in a case of sex trafficking that goes back all the way to the early 2000s that implicated all of these leftist liberal elites, most especially one Bill Clinton. And what do you know? Epstein just up and went all Vince Foster on us, right? Vince Foster was the White House special counsel under Clinton that was also found dead of an apparent suicide. These guys really bumped themselves off, don't they? So now we got Jeffrey Epstein, who was ready to blow the roof of all of the seedy corruption implicating our globalist elite, most especially Bill Clinton. And what do you know? He's found dead of another apparent suicide. The fellow who already supposedly tried to kill himself and was under a suicide watch successfully evaded such 24/7 monitoring and somehow found a way of bumping himself off in a jail cell. If you believe that, I have some oceanfront property to sell you in Kansas. You see, if you believe that, then we can all go back to this whole notion that Trump and white supremacism is our nation's biggest problem, right? We can all go back to calling for our president's impeachment because of his white nationalism and Nazism and racism and bigotry. That's what's our real problem here. I mean, we now have NBC News reporters wishing for a freaking economic recession because that's the only way we're going to get rid of this racist, bigot, white supremacist in the White House. No, and let's make sure to dox all his contributors, right? Let's harass all his supporters. Let's refuse to provide service for anyone wearing a red MAGA hat and cheer that, business owner on, because that's what's our real problem in this nation. So all this racism and bigotry and homophobia and sexism, that's the worst thing that we're facing in our world today. Forget the fact that we have a bunch of immoral left-wing freaks running our nation. And of course, I'm talking about the heinousness of the secular liberal globalists, both politicians and so-called journalists and jurists and lawyers and all other kinds of left-wing activists disguised as supposed public servants. If you don't know, this goes all back in 2005. The Palm Beach police were informed by a mother of a young girl in West Palm Beach that her daughter had been brought to Epstein's mansion and propositioned to have sex for money. Okay. This ended up kicking off an extensive one-year undercover investigation. In the process of that investigation, police interviewed 17 witnesses who saw all sorts of sex toys and paraphernalia in mansion after underage girls had been there. And there was a young woman who admitted that she was paid $200 for every teenage girl she successfully brought to Epstein's mansion. Investigators tracked down 5 of his victims, each of whom admitted that they were, in fact, paid between $200 to $300 to engage in various sex acts with him. When police raided his mansion, they found tons of sexually explicit photographs of underage girls, teenage girls. Now, if that's not outrageous enough, when the police chief presented all of this evidence to Palm Beach County's Democratic prosecutor Barry Krischer, he actually turned around and charged Epstein, get this, he charged Epstein with 1 count of soliciting prostitution. He labeled these children prostitutes and in turn offered Epstein probation. Keep in mind, Ann Coulter does a great job with this. She pointed out, this is the same prosecutor, this Barry Krischer, who hounded the conservative talk radio star Rush Limbaugh for 3 freaking years for abusing back pain medication, okay? So this is a weaponization of the law. And so as a result, the police chief blew up. He wasn't having any of this. So the police chief turned to the Bush administration at the time to seek justice against this obvious child rapist. And that's when the story about a major Democratic billionaire donor became getting protected by this special prosecutor. That's when it started to blow up, kind of. The British press picked up on it, the Florida media picked up, Fox News, but CNN, MSNBC, they didn't breathe a word about it. They didn't elicit so much as a peep about a Democratic prosecutor refusing to charge a billionaire Democratic donor in multiple counts of child rape. Now, as a result of the federal investigation, which was led by Republicans, Epstein had to plead guilty to 2 state felony charges, which got him 2 years in prison. Okay? Again, not a whimper from MSNBC, not a peep from CNN. And to make matters even worse, Democratic county prison officials placed Epstein in a private wing of the county jail and allowed him to spend 12 hours a day, 6 days a week at his mansion throughout his entire sentence. However, in 2014, conservative lawyers brought suit against the federal prosecutors in this case for violating a Victims' Rights Act in the whole Epstein situation. And this is when the testimonies of the various underage victims reported that some of the guests at the Caribbean island that Epstein owns, what victims have been calling Orgy Island, some of the guests were none other than former President Bill Clinton and others, Harvard professor of law Alan Dershowitz, even Prince Andrew. And of course, when this broke, CNN had to cover it, and they did. They featured the various celebrities that had visited the island, but not once did CNN mention Bill Clinton. MSNBC did the exact same thing. They devoted 1 hour to the scandal, but omitted any mention of Bill Clinton being involved. But then something else happened. The media found a picture proving that Epstein had visited Trump's mansion in Florida, and they found a quote where Trump said, "Yeah, I think Epstein's a good guy." Again, this is going back to 2002. And again, as Ann Coulter points out in this, it doesn't matter that Epstein was one of the hundreds of thousands of people to visit Mar-a-Lago, Trump's mansion in Florida, just as hundreds of thousands have visited the Grand Canyon or the Empire State Building. That didn't matter. All right, that was irrelevant. The very second that the corporatist, globalist, left-wing frauds called our media found this connection between Epstein and Trump, boom, the story broke. Lawrence O'Donnell came out. Again, Lawrence O'Donnell, a left-wing activist disguised as a journalist, got on an MSNBC, and celebrated Jeffrey Epstein as a dear friend of Donald Trump, a child sex trafficking rapist friend of Donald Trump. This is all you need to know about who these people are. Okay, I don't know how many of you are familiar with the Polish psychologist Andrew Lobaczewski. Okay, he's been studying Marxist elites for 40 years. He studied Marxist elites, studied Nazi elites, and he concluded that they really all are psychopaths, okay? And when the world is run by psychopaths, it becomes hysterical. It literally becomes insane. And I could not diagnose this situation better than that. Epstein and the Democrats and the Democratic communication wing known as the mainstream, lamestream media, the corporatist, globalist media, they really all are psychotic. There's no point in trying to figure them out or reason with them. They care nothing, not one whit about these girls. They're psychopaths. They don't give a rip about justice. They don't care about Epstein. They don't care about what he did or allegedly did. They don't care about the admitted indiscretions of Bill Clinton. All they care about is power. That's it. They're psychopaths. All they care about is their own power, their own elite status in a globalized world that rules the masses in accordance with the supposedly salvific whims of a secular aristocratic elite into which these useful idiots in the corporatist media have been admitted. Democrats in politics and media work together to try to pull off this charade. And again, I think the good news in all this is that everyone now sees it. Everyone, that is, who hasn't drunk deeply of the leftist Kool-Aid. Everyone knows what a pathetic joke these left-wing aristocratic elite are. And it's time to put their reign to an end.